Hello, everybody. This is MZ, and I wanted to greet you guys on what I consider a very beautiful day today. 72 degrees, sun is out. Just came in from tending to the last of my garden, my fall garden, which is now starting to produce fruit. So that's always a good thing to have a bountiful harvest out of your garden. But what I wanted to talk with you guys today was I was looking at this documentary, which has been, I'm not sure what platform it's on, but it's new for this year, 2025. It's about Thomas Jefferson. And, we know the mythological, figures of the founding fathers. He was one of them. He's actually the one that drafted the Declaration of Independence. But there's a whole story behind how he got to that position as a young man, born in 1743 in Virginia. His father had a plantation there. I believe they had upward to 600 to 700 slaves. Young, as it was back then, young slaves of the same age were assigned to the children of the master's family, and they basically shadowed them for their entire lives. And they also became, on a lot of occasions, became best friends. But on the Jefferson plantation, those slaves had more privilege than most of enslaved people, of enslaved Africans. So what Thomas Jefferson did, as his father was a big stickler of education, sent him to what I found out was the oldest university in the United States. I think Harvard and William and Mary are 1 and 2. I'm not sure which one is the oldest, but they're 1 and 2. And he went to William and Mary, which is right there in Virginia. Became a lawyer, and became a very good writer. He wasn't a very good orator. He wasn't a very good one for giving speeches, but he was an excellent writer, and that's how his reputation preceded him when he finally became one of the founding fathers, and they had him actually pen the Declaration of Independence. So in one of my shorts that I did for the Arts of Leadership, I actually expounded on the founding fathers and the hypocrisy of their sociological and cultural foundation, which they stole from Kemet. And most of them were Freemasons. I'm not sure about Thomas Jefferson. There's nothing in the story so far that I've seen, in the documentary so far, that I've seen that shows that he's a Freemason, that his father was a Freemason. So I know all the founding fathers weren't Freemasons, but the majority of them were. I don't believe Thomas Jefferson is or was. I need to look at the rest of the documentary. I've only seen the first 2 or 3 episodes. I think there's 6 episodes total. So I'm going to go back and finish it within the next couple of days. But I thought it was interesting. That's the reason why I'm doing the video. So getting back to the hypocrisy, what I found is that when I understand that he has a very, unique experience with slavery. They weren't necessarily oppressive, but who knows how oppressive they were on the Jefferson plantation. Who knows? And I think they called it Monticello, but who knows? And we know about his dealings with Sally Hemings, the black slave, the African slave who had some of his children, which was not unusual at that time. They always did that. But Thomas Jefferson, being the founding father, he was very. It was very embarrassing for the historians, for the European historians, to show that he had children by an African slave, which is, like I said, a very normal thing back then. But they wanted to keep everything quiet, and this is where the hypocrisy comes from. So when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, when he penned it, he had the original draft, which of course they took apart, took a lot of things out of it, changed a lot of the writing and the wording and the verbiage. and came out to a very, very politically correct version of the Declaration of Independence. They took a lot of things out. So what I'm going to do, and I made sure, obviously, when I found that out, that I went and got me a copy of the original draft by Thomas Jefferson. And I'm going to put up the screenshot of what I'm going to read right now, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of commentary on that. So here we go. This will be the second page. Well, on the document that I have is on the second page. And this was the original draft of Thomas Jefferson, the Declaration of Independence. So I'm starting here, and I'm going to put the screenshot up right now. For taking away our charters and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments. He's talking about King Edward III, was a king. So anyway, for taking away our charters and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for responding our legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here, withdrawing his governors and declaring us out of his allegiance and protection. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has endeavored to bring in on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguishable destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions of existence. He has incited treasonable insurrections in our fellow subjects, with the allurements of forfeiture and confiscation of our property. He has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, and to incur miserable death in their transportation thither. This piratical warfare, the opprobrium of infidel powers, is the warfare of the Christian king of Great Britain, determined to keep open the market where men should be bought and sold. He has prostituted his negative for suppressing every legislative attempt to prohibit or to restrain this execrable commerce. Execrable commerce. And that disassemblage of horrors might want no fact of distinguished die. He is now exciting those very people to rise in arms among us and to purchase that liberty of which he has deprived them, by murdering people upon whom he has also obtruded them, thus paying off former crimes committed against the liberties of one people with crimes which he urges them to commit against the lives of another. Now, as you can see, I had some difficulty reading that because this is like very, very early English, very early colonial English. And it's, sometimes difficult to read what these guys are writing. But basically, you get the point. I want to make a couple of notes here. On one of those things, it says something about keeping an open market where men should be bought and sold. Understand where he put the word men. He wasn't the only person that thought that way at the time. And they would have, they wanted to, they could have eliminated slavery as an institution then, but he was one of the minorities. Even though he had slaves, even though his father had slaves, and his father died at an early age, by the way, and he ended up, inheriting the plantation. But obviously, when you have privilege, you're not going to let go of the very thing that gives you privilege. So this is where the hypocrisy comes in at. Also, too, I want to make you guys understand where he wrote here, where there was no fact to undistinguished die. The king is now exciting those very people to rise in arms among us. He's talking about the enslaved people, because there was the decree by King George III to have the enslaved Africans rise up against the property owners and plantations of the colonies, so they can win the war, the Revolutionary War against the revolutionary colonies. So this is where all the hypocrisy comes in at. So I know that they did something with the slaves where they said, okay, look, fight on our side and we'll work very hard at eliminating this institution of slavery. Obviously, you're going to do what you need to do. As an enslaved people, you have to take somebody's word for it, and I guess that's what they did. So most of them fought on the side of the colonists of the new republic of the United States. What we have here is a very classic case of why do we want, as African people, why do we want sovereignty? In that last video that I did on a notion of art of leadership, and I talked about the founding fathers, I was saying that what they would do what they had to do was political. Everything basically was political. Politics gives you the result that you want. There is such a thing as truth in politics, but for the main thing, the end result is the end result. We see that in modern day politics today. Do what you need to do within reason to get the results that you need. And if that means to lie, to circumvent rules and laws and regulations, to cherry pick what you think is truth and falsehood, to push something that you don't really believe in as something that is part of your platform, even though you have no intention of even following through with that promise to to the people who will vote you in. This is what politics is all about, and this was no different back then in the early 18th century in 1776 when they finally got this thing drafted. The original draft of Thomas Jefferson looks nothing like the final draft that finally went out as a published document to the people and to the feudal king of Great Britain, of England. It don't even look the same. So I would suggest that you guys go ahead online. It's very easy to find the original draft of Thomas Jefferson Declaration of Independence, and also to look at, when you get some time, this documentary that's on now about Thomas Jefferson this year, 2025. And understand that what we're dealing with now with this so-called administration, the Trump administration, there's no difference. You cannot look at politics as something that can be dependent on, especially when they're talking about Urugu and the European. Nothing what they do and say and profess can be stated as being true. There's always got to be some kind of subterfuge or misdirection in there somewhere. And this is what we have to do. So what these founding fathers of these colonies did was considered treasonous. And when you look at something that we have to do as African people, trying to get sovereignty, does it rise to the level of treason? No, I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go that far at all. But it gives you the feeling that I know some Africans who feels though talking that way feels treasonous to them because they've bought into this whole thing of love of country and dying for your country and dying for the flag and I live here, I worked here, and I'll die here, and this is the only country that I know. And I understand that a lot of people feel that way. But in order for us to get sovereignty as a nation, I'm not talking about sovereignty as a physical nation, a physical sovereignty. I'm talking about a cultural, philosophical, and spiritual sovereignty that we need as people. We can't get there unless we are all on the same page. At least the majority of us as African people on the same page with similar African ideals, similar African spirituality, spiritual African code of conduct, similar African morality. All these things have to be in line for the African consciousness, the African sovereign consciousness. And this is the sovereignty that we're talking about. All right. So, all right. I'm trying to go I'm really going all over the place, but Check out that Thomas Jefferson documentary. A lot of nuggets in there, a lot of good information in there. And also pull up that document, the original draft of the Declaration of Independence that was penned by the young Thomas Jefferson. And I'll, when I get another, inspirational thing, I'll come back and talk to you guys again. Peace. African sovereignty.